They were bouncing me between doctors. They said that something must be wrong inside my arm. I had many MRIs done, nothing came from that, and I had about 4 or 5 EMGs done also, nothing came from that either, so many tests, and I was getting to the point where I just couldn't really take it any longer.
MMN disease, or multifocal motor neuropathy, is a rare autoimmune disorder where the immune system attacks motor nerves, causing progressive asymmetric muscle weakness. It is often mistaken for ALS, but affects only lower motor neurons, leading to difficulty with fine movements, dropping things, and sometimes muscle cramps. It is very rare, affects a small percentage of the population, more common in men, and often starting in middle age.
This is the most incredible story. It started with a toe that didn't quite move, in a sock, in a shoe that crumpled up. Very odd. This is the story of John and an 8-year battle to find a diagnosis. So John, we've met before and I've run through your story a lot because we had a good old chat. So the thing is, what struck me first and foremost was how very strange it all started. Your foot, a sock and a shoe. Tell us a little bit about that.
I put on a sock, as you normally do before you put on the shoe, and I found the sock kept on bunching up on my big toe, and it's something you just subconsciously rub your toes together and take it off, and I couldn't rub my toes together, so I thought something going on here. I can't move my toe, but it wasn't affecting me. Yeah. My day-to-day life.
It's only one little digit, no? So you thought,
odd,
pero bueno.
I can still walk. It's not like it's causing me any real sort of disability, you know, in my day-to-day life. So I didn't really think anything about it. So I just carried on as normal.
Yeah. So what happened next? Because obviously this started to progress, and that's when it became all a little bit concerning.
From there, maybe within a space of a couple of years, because it happened very slowly, I started to not being able to move some other toes after that first one, and then it got all the way to the point where I couldn't even lift up my foot. So I noticed that when I walked, I was walking with a little bit of a gait. I could hear my foot slap every time I walked.
It's like a drop foot,
yeah,
no? So they say
drop foot or foot drop, or this is what they call it. And I went to the doctor after that, because I was a bit more, I was worried a bit more. But I had previous issues with my lower back. They pretty much thought that it was due to the lower back, and there wasn't much else done until, I think, for about 7 or 8 years.
7 or 8 years. So for 7 or 8 years, you were going from doctor to doctor. You tried physiotherapy. I'm guessing you had all the bloods, the scans, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And nothing, but it's progressively getting worse.
Yeah, it's progressively getting worse. I mean, I would go to the doctor and they wouldn't find anything, and then I would just, maybe for a year or two or for some time, I would just sort of ignore it a bit, let's say, no? And then after a couple of years, when it was bothering me again, or it had gotten somewhat worse, I would go back again, and then they would carry out the same tests again, and nothing would come from it. So
this is the thing with these types of diseases, disorders. They're very difficult to pinpoint, aren't they? Because this was neurological?
Neurological, but autoimmune, so it's...
But autoimmune, so basically your body was attacking your nervous system.
Yeah.
And those signals that were being sent to your limbs. Let's go right back to who John is, so that people understand how devastating this must have been for you. You were very active, gym bunny?
Yeah, I was every day. I would go to the gym, Monday through to Friday, would rest on the weekends, fishing, would fish bluefin tuna with my dad and my son for many years, since I was very young. And what else? Yeah, shooting. Used to do pistol shooting, actually. Shots for Gibraltar for the Island Games. So, and this was pretty recent. Before I started having some major issues with my hands after my initial foot drop. And yeah, so I was pretty active, you know, I was just a normal person.
So when when it started to progress, there were some major life changes. I mean, I'm sure that you couldn't shoot anymore. Running must have been more difficult, or being in the gym.
Running and walking,
Lifting weights.
lifting weights, especially. While I was having the issues with my leg, it wasn't as bad as when I started to have issues with my hands a little bit after. So after about 7 or 8 years of having trouble with my foot, so I started having what at the moment I could only describe as the same as foot drop. You know, I had wrist drop in my mind. Without knowing truly that it was actually called wrist drop, and exactly the same symptoms that I was having on my foot, that began on my foot with one finger first, and then it moved on to the other fingers, and I went to the doctor again, because now I felt like I had the same issue that was happening on my leg, but on my hands, and I thought, since they were saying that it was due to maybe some hernias in my lower back or some slipped discs, maybe that's the case also for the issue that I'm having in my hands. Maybe I was having a little bit of neck pain, so I thought maybe there's something going on with my neck that's affecting my hands.
I've heard so many stories of people who go through years of trying to find a diagnosis. And one thing strikes me is that, first and foremost, your gut is telling you something's not right. And then secondly comes the frustration. You know that your gut's not telling you something's not right, but you're not getting the answers that you need. So at what point did you say, Javata, I need to know what's going on?
That point came when after, I think I'd been about a year and a half after, in total, let's say about 8.5 years already. About a year and a half into my hand issues, which had been progressively getting worse to the point where I was scared to hold my kids because I might drop them. I couldn't grab cutlery. I couldn't brush my teeth properly because every time I grabbed something with my hands would fold in, and I didn't have any sort of strength in my hands or in my wrists. So turning a key into the lock, you know, getting into the flat. So small things that slowly started accumulating, you know, and I was really stressed out, man, and when I came to actually notice, I was depressed. I was already deep in a hole, you know, with depression. I mean, what you want, the people that you want to help you, and the only people that you feel that can help you when you're feeling like this or when you have a medical issue, it's the hospital or the doctors that you're seeing. And I didn't feel like I was getting that from the hospital, not from all the doctors. I do get the feeling that some doctors in the hospital, and nurses included, are there because for vocational purposes and not como antiguamente, and como mi abuela cuando era enfermera, ¿no? Que era amor por el trabajo lo que tenían, and not like como se ve mucho hoy en día, que they're there just for the pay and not for the love of what they do. And nursing and working in the hospital and dealing with patients and people who are vulnerable at that point. I mean, they need professional people there. So, having said that, they were bouncing me between doctors. They said that something must be wrong inside my arm. I had many MRIs done. Nothing came from that, and I had about 4 or 5 EMGs done. Also, nothing came from that either. So many tests, and I was getting to the point where I just couldn't really take it any longer, and it was affecting my quality of life, but not only my disability, but my frame of mind also because of this, you know, because of the journey. Not knowing, obviously nowadays you can do a lot of research yourself, and what I was reading about most was that it was ALS and some conditions like this, you know, which some names that you don't want to hear, let's say, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started getting more worried, let's say, you know, and it was affecting my wife also, was affecting my parents, and actually I had scheduled a surgery for my arm with the arm doctor, because he said that there must be something going on in my arm. He has to open up. And I couldn't stand with that, you know. I didn't feel comfortable with it, so I sent an email to the Minister for Health. I involved the Minister. She answered straight away that she would get a team on it, and I got a call the day after that they were going to send me to Zanitz, which is to have another EMG, but in a different hospital than what I had been going to. And I came out from that test, knowing or hearing for the first time the name multifocal motor neuropathy.
Focal
Motor neuropathy, or MMN.
MMN, yeah.
And I couldn't take it any longer. I just had to involve the Minister. I thought I needed some extra help, and it was the only step to take, the only next step to take. And that's when I got my diagnosis, after about 8.5 or 9 years.
8.5, and during this period, people forget, because depression is such a deep and powerful thing. But it's not only, depression comes in many forms, and it was this constant battle of trying to find answers and this deterioration over a period of time that took you to a really dark place. And not only were you seeing a whole load of doctors and nurses, but you then started to see a psychiatrist as well.
Yeah, and I was lucky to see it soon, instead of having to wait 3 or 4 months to be able to see a psychiatrist, because I really needed to see a psychiatrist straight away. And I knew somebody that worked with the mental health department, and I reached out, and I think within a couple of days I was seeing a psychiatrist, and they just gave me some tablets, and speaking to somebody who isn't a family member or somebody who doesn't know you about the issue was positive, really changed my frame of mind a little bit, even though I was taking medication for the depression, but it helped. At least.
What was going through your mind in those darkest moments when you just didn't know where to turn?
That it was ALS. That's what I kept thinking, that it was ALS, and I didn't know how long I would have to live, basically, to be blunt, you know. I was researching all of my symptoms, and it all pointed to ALS, you know. It seems to be very similar. It's actually, MMN is actually misdiagnosed as ALS very often. It wasn't the case with me, but that's happened more than you'd like to hear.
Did you ever feel suicidal?
No. Never.
You were struggling on?
Yeah,
Never crossed your mind?
No. I think that even though I did become a little bit vulnerable there, which is understandable because of what I had going on, I was still pretty strong mentally. So that never crossed my mind, to be honest.
So because you told me that, and it's very important to understand that as well, that your depression was triggered by your illness.
By the uncertainty.
By the uncertainty.
Not necessarily by the illness, but I mean by the uncertainty, you know, the not knowing, I think was the worst part of my whole diagnosis, I think.
Right.
That was what was causing, I mean, it's clear as day that was what was causing the depression, because as soon as I got the diagnosis and I left that clinic that day, I mean, it was a different air that I breathed when I stepped out of the clinic, you know. I didn't need them. From that day forward, I don't encourage anyone to do this, because it's not what you're supposed to do, but I felt like I didn't need to take the medication that I was taking from the psychiatrist any longer, so I stopped it cold turkey that day, and I just didn't need it any longer. I knew what was going on. I knew there was a medication that I could take, you know, and it wasn't ALS.
John, the moving forward now, so we've finally, after a very long rocky road, got a diagnosis. You know what you're dealing with, you know what it looks like moving forward. But now comes the treatment, a treatment which is quite invasive, which you have to have for the rest of your life, and which involves something quite incredible. Tell us a little bit about your treatment and how it happens.
I have to have a medication every 4, subject to change the frequency, but at the moment it's every 4 weeks over 2 days. I spend anywhere between 3 and 5 hours each day hooked up to a pump. And the medication that I take is called immunoglobulin. And the process of having this medication is called intravenous immunoglobulin. And basically this medication is made by plasma donors, or is derived from plasma donations from plasma donors. So selfless people that the same way that you go to donate blood. Or the thing is, it takes a little bit longer. It takes about 90 minutes instead of 15 or 20, and it's a little bit more, but you can donate more often. So, and you actually, it's how can I put it? I mean, these people, they are doing a selfless act that's saving lives. For my condition, MMN, it's not a lifesaver per se. It's going to give me quality of life. With MMN, it's not fatal, so I would have lived till old age, most likely anyway. But they do save lives. There are other conditions like GBS who require a quick infusion of immunoglobulin in order to get your lungs working again, and if not, you'll be on a ventilator, you know. So these people, yeah, they're lifesavers. I mean, I was privileged enough to actually go to a plasma donation center now during a visit that I went to Berlin. They actually invited me over there for a workshop with the foundation I work with, and I went to a plasma donation center, and I saw people, actually thanked people there personally, you know, that were donating actively there.
Saving your life.
So, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the plasma, because a lot of people might not understand it. So plasma is in the blood, but it has to go through a process of separation. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is something that Gibraltar doesn't do.
Yeah.
Right. So it's being done abroad. There are fantastic people donating this plasma to complete strangers like yourself, and you were lucky enough to meet one of those who very, very grateful to. And then it comes to Gibraltar and they call you in and then they hook you up, a little bit like that?
Yeah, more or less. I think it's already stocked here and ready to go, because you know, you never know if anybody with GBS has got a very rapid onset, and you never know if anybody with any other condition might need to have IVIG. I mean, now that I am a frequent user of this medication, I guess that they stock up my dose frequently.
How many people does it take to keep you going and functioning?
I think that's the shocking part, you know. For every 2 days that I spend every 4 weeks there, I need over 1,000 donors.
1,000 people going in
Over 1,000
a month,
Yeah.
sitting down, taking their blood to separate to plasma.
Yeah, for the rest of my life.
It's mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling. So this whole journey has taken you through a route whereby you're a man who's on a mission. You're that kind of person, no? So it's opened up a whole host of doors. You've made connections abroad with other people with MMN, because it's very rare. You're the only person in Gibraltar who has it. And that has given you almost another lease of life. No, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to raise awareness for strange and rare diseases in Gibraltar. Where are you at there?
I've been working with the GBS CIDP Foundation International since very early on in my diagnosis. And through them is how I managed to go to Berlin and meet these people donating, these plasma donors, and go to the plasma donation center, among other things that I do with them. You know, I also provide support to other patients with other rare conditions, not only with MMN. Also, what I'm doing at the moment is trying to bring plasma donation to Gibraltar. I'm not sure that that's going to work, because statistically, I mean, maybe you need more than what we can actually collect in Gibraltar, and maybe that might not work. My aim is to be able to send that plasma over to manufacturing company for fractionation, which is a process that they do to be able to then turn it into my medication after. But in any case, if that doesn't work out, I'll still keep raising awareness about plasma donation, because at the end of the day, my donations come from an international panel, let's say, and it's always going to be positive to raise awareness internationally anyway, you know, even at a local level, so that people actually know what it entails, you know. Just because it's something that we don't have here doesn't mean that people don't use this, you know, these donations. And I think the biggest thing that I'm working towards for the coming year is establishing a support group for patients with rare diseases, maybe even a charity. I don't know if I'll go as far as that, but maybe even a charity where we can get patients with rare diseases or rare conditions, and try to network with other international organizations so that they can find the proper support that they need. peer-to-peer, patient-to-patient. You know, there's nothing I found invaluable the patient-to-patient support that I've had. You know, I also established a group on social media just solely for MMN patients within the UK. And we have over 100, we have about 130 patients, between patients and caregivers, mostly patients. And the feedback that I get from that group and just seeing the other patients, you know, post about their problems and other patients replying, you know, on the forum that I provided is very satisfying. And I think that it's my way of fighting back against the condition. I think I found my calling, let's say, you know, a friend of mine,
like it.
a friend of mine actually, I hadn't really thought about it like that, you know, but when I was coming down from Berlin, the driver from the transfer, he said, I was explaining to him, you know, my situation, and he said, I think you found your calling, you know, and I said, look, I haven't really thought about it like that before, but I think you're right, you know, I haven't heard it better put in a better said, yeah, that's it, you know, so, yeah.
So let's look at the future then, John. What are the things that are challenges looking forward, and what are your blessings?
My blessings, definitely having a supportive family, you know, and my children, my wife and my children, you know. My wife, she's not a caregiver per se, because I don't really need care, but when I'm not well, she takes over, you know, with the kids, with the cooking, and if I'm not well, I can just rest, you know. So she's a caregiver in that sense, and my kids, they just give me a reason to carry on, you know. And she's aware, you know, she's 9 years old, and she's aware of MMN and of what I have to go through, and I hope that it empowers my kids in future, you know, to be able to continue, and I hope to live a relatively normal and good life until old age, you know.
So you'll be on this meds for life now?
Yeah, for life. Maybe the frequency might change and the dosage might change. Maybe I might need it. I find that speaking to other patients and those that have been diagnosed for much longer, that because this medication is not a cure, you know, it's a treatment.
It's a maintenance
thing. That's it. So I mean, my hands are still weak. I'm still paralyzed. My leg is still partially paralyzed, and it's something which I have to deal with. I'll always have to deal with it, you know, and I'm open to it, you know. It's nothing you can do. It's not worth crying over spilled milk, as they say, and I think that really plays well here, because you can't go back. I can't go back, you know. I can only go forward, so I have to try and make the most of what's coming ahead, you know, and that's it.
Your attitude is incredible, though. You're a real fighter.
You just have to find strength where there is none, I guess. And just, I don't know, just keep strong. I've got things to do every day.
You've got to carry on.
I've got to carry on as best I can, you know, and there are some days, I mean, it's okay to, it's hard to understand, you know, sometimes, and to come to terms with, sometimes I feel well and I look at myself and I don't see a disability, and I start the task that I have at hand, and I find that halfway through it or a quarter of a way through it that I can't continue, you know.
Right.
So it's hard to come to terms with that. But once, I think that was one of the hardest, other than the diagnosis and being undiagnosed, but I think once I was diagnosed, coming to terms with this has made everything easier, I guess. When you feel good. You start maybe doing anything that involves your hands, any normal thing that any other person would do that you take for granted, you know, and you can't get through it, and it's demoralizing. Pero you just have to keep going. Después llego a la casa y hay un niño llorando, or whatever, hay que jugar con él, you know. The family is there, and they're my support system, and I get through it thanks to them.
There was something you did as well that we have to mention, because there are lots of awareness days and months and weeks during the year, and we've had to mark those occasions, the Moorish castle lit up in the relevant colours, and you fought for that, just for MMN. What day, what month is it? It's
February.
February, isn't it?
Yeah, February is the month that I've designated as MMN Awareness Month, and I was pretty early on in my diagnosis, actually. Well, I think I got diagnosed in February 2024, coincidentally MMN Awareness Month. And the February after, so a year after, yeah, I spoke to the minister again, you know. I don't know who to speak to. Who can I speak to try and achieve this?
She's been very good with you, no?
She has. I mean, I think it's worth noting and mentioning, you know, that's it's not like speaking to a human being, you know, behind the text. It's not speaking to a machine, and
Right.
I find that she really cares, you know. I mean, that's been my experience, you know. I may not be able to speak for everybody, but in my experience, she has shown an interest and she has intervened when she has been able to, and yeah, so it's worth mentioning. It's also worth mentioning, I think, that the nurses, you know, the work that they do in the infusion unit, which is where I spend a lot of time, and I think one of the nurses, because she knows I was having some trouble with some of my veins, and she was off on one of the 2 days I was supposed to be over, and this was early in my treatment, and she cancelled one of the days that she was off on annual leave to come and be there to make sure that, you know, that I was comfortable.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's
Amazing. That's vocation.
That's vocation. Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
You know?
that's
so
special.
yeah, I'm glad to as my experience in the beginning was a bit negative when we talk about vocation, but in the end, it's all. So I mean, I've met a lot of people in hospital that are there because they love what they do.
Well, February is coming up very shortly, and we're going to be looking up to the Moorish castle, and hopefully there'll be a colour. What colour is it?
Orange, and hopefully more than one
Orange.
evening this time. It was a bit precipitated last time. It was a bit quick, and yeah, I only had one evening, but hopefully maybe a week this time, or I don't know. I don't want to push it, but yeah, maybe a little bit longer.
John, it's fantastic talking to you. I mean, at the end of the day, you are such a positive and driven person, and I can see you doing a lot of good for a lot of people who have these rare diseases, who don't know where to turn. And if collectively you can get together and share, that would be absolutely amazing.
I mean, if it helps one person, it was worth it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's all it is.
I wish you the best, onwards and upwards.
Thank you for having me.